It goes without saying, cults are infamous for a very good reason. They are known to indoctrinate people, manipulate them, and use them as a collective for the goals of an individual cult leader or a harmful belief system. In many cases, they target individuals that are very vulnerable, as they're generally more likely to look for leadership. Desperate people tend to look for desperate answers and tend to not use their better judgment. Take, for instance, the story of the miracle mineral supplement that claimed to cure just about anything from Alzheimer's to autism. And as it would turn out, not only did it not cure any disease, did not help any disease, but also contained bleach. Cults thrive when followers of an individual collective prescribe themselves to blind misinformation. With all of that being said, today we're going to dive back into retracing the digital footsteps of one such cult. This is the story of the now defunct Reddit cult of Cantelmoism. My encounter with this bizarre topic first started when I was looking for more internet mysteries to do videos on, and I was on another popular subreddit called the Reddit Bureau of Investigation, and I found a post that read the following: super unusual subreddit where every post is gilded an absurd amount of times. Here is ISS Gold, the subreddit in question. I'm pretty positive they're all bots, but why circle jerk thousands of dollars into gilding onto these posts for no reason at all? There has to be some reason why. At the time I had first checked out this subreddit, it was still up, but as of now has been made private. In a nutshell, there were countless posts on this tiny subreddit that contained a vast amount of Reddit gold and silver. At first it appeared like some sort of test subreddit, something very similar to the YouTube channel WebDriver Torso. While I couldn't find any proof this was a test subreddit, what I did find out from a comment was what led me to this topic. A user had commented that this could have a possible connection to r/Cantelmoism, which dropped me right into one of the most interesting stories I've ever come across on Reddit. Trying to access r/Cantelmoism, you'll notice that the entire community has been banned. What's interesting here is that Reddit actually took notice of this community and banned it altogether. Keep in mind there's an r/Scientology subreddit that is wide open. So what was so bad about this one that Reddit had to take action? I will note the reason for this subreddit being banned is listed as for being unmoderated, but I highly doubt that, as you'll soon learn more details. If you trace this entire situation back, this all starts with a Reddit user by the name of Chris CGC, whose real name is Chris Cantelmo, who became notorious on Reddit for giving away upwards of $70,000 in Reddit badges, which was calculated by his own mods on his own subreddit. If you look into this guy's background, you'll learn that he owns a medical company called GL Sciences, as well as a few other companies in the past, to which he made quite a bit of money. Just to make sure, if you're unfamiliar with Reddit badges, they're used as gifts from one Reddit user to another and are displayed on posts. They are usually given out as a good job award for being particularly funny or helpful. Reddit Silver is the cheapest Reddit badge you can put on a post. The next tier is Reddit Gold, which gives you 1 week of Reddit Premium. Lastly, there is Reddit Platinum, which provides 1 month of Reddit Premium. If you're unfamiliar with Reddit Premium, essentially it is just a membership that unlocks a variety of features with Reddit, including the option to turn off ads. Moving back to Chris CGC, he became well known, as I said, for randomly gilding posts on the r/teenagers and r/dank memes subreddit. Keep in mind, this guy clearly targeted a younger demographic by going for those subreddits. For example, in this individual post, it would cost about $350, which features 69 platinum badges, and would equate to 69 months of Reddit Premium for the user who posted this. This was common behavior for Chris, as he would basically be handing out money every single day. In fact, this was even so common that they created an entire subreddit called Children of Chris, dedicated to people who were gifted gold by him. At first glance, this seems entirely harmless. This guy was being generous with a lot of money and was reported to be spending thousands of dollars a day on gilded Reddit posts. As you can imagine, many people didn't have a problem with getting free Reddit Premium memberships, and it got to a point where people would just pass this guy's name around and say, "Message Chris, he'll send you gold." As I said, at first it seemed rather benign. It seemed like this guy simply had a bunch of money to go around and was willing to pull stunts for the sake of entertainment. But as time would go on, he would reveal the actual motive behind these gilding sprees. As a result of this guy gilding almost any post that was in his way, many people were curious about the man behind the gildings. A lot of people looked up to him because he was very generous. However, in an interview done by Insider Meme Trading after he gained some attention, he is questioned about his motive regarding the mass gilding sprees, to which he responds saying he wanted to get the message out that DMT cured cancer. In case you're unfamiliar, DMT is an incredibly powerful hallucinogen. DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, has been studied in the field of cancer. However, there is no consistent peer-reviewed evidence that would suggest this in any way. And let's be real here, if a cure for cancer was found, do you think a guy would have to do a publicity stunt on Reddit spending thousands of dollars to get the word out? In the months to come, he still found some notoriety and started to gain a following as a result of his generosity. And something I want to note here, many of these followers were not in it for the sake of his teachings, however, they were a byproduct of being around him. Nonetheless, a portion of people stuck around and did listen to what this guy had to say, and there are former believers of Cantelmoism. And as time went on, and through the help of Cantelmoism Exposed, a subreddit we will get to, many people started to outline the potential symptoms of a forming cult. As I said earlier, looking back on this situation is incredibly difficult, as all the original threads surrounding the r/Cantelmoism subreddit have been deleted. Not to mention, Chris CGC himself was also banned from Reddit. In fact, Chris has been banned more than once. People collectively created a comprehensive list of alternate accounts that Chris was creating, and most of them are banned. What remains is a subreddit called Cantelmoism Exposed, in which we get a full understanding of the situation. The sidebar of this individual subreddit reads the following. Cantelmoism is a cult of personalities centered around Chris Cantelmo, who came to prominence on Reddit through his mass gilding sprees. The cult espouses a form of psychedelic New Age pseudoscience, ranging from innocuous beliefs to dangerous self-harm, and has targeted members of r/teenagers for recruitment. We are here to aggregate information about Cantelmoism and help people make informed decisions to avoid further recruitment. Among the pinned threads in the subreddit, we find one called Outline of Initial Concerns with Cantelmoism. Here we learned quite a bit about this whole fiasco. The thread reads the following. I'm interested in whether or not any true cults have ever emerged on Reddit. I've been following Chris CGC and his sub Cantelmoism. I started out participating for the awards. I had 5 years of premium after a few days of participation, but once I had more than enough gold, I continued to participate out of interest for what is the strangest, most cult-like sub I've ever seen. Today, it is starting to get more renewed interest by the Reddit community. As a leader, Chris CGC has been suspended by Reddit for 3 days, and it was mentioned in a popular and just deleted Ask Reddit thread described as a really weird cult-like subreddit run by a guy who gilds literally all the posters. He talks about how he has terminal brain cancer and that he's cured it with DMT, and believes DMT can cure literally everything, and the users seem to agree for some reason. My personal take is that he's a schizophrenic, but I have no proof. Without going into too much depth, here's a few ways in which it seems like a cult. Mind-altering practices such as meditation, chanting, speaking in tongues, denunciation sessions, and debilitating work routines are used in excess. Perhaps the main tenet of the whole cult is that DMT is a perfect and godly substance with no bad effects that everybody should be using, and that it cures cancer and AIDS. In fact, he has gone as far as saying that radiation and chemotherapy are torture and make patients worse, not better, which is extremely dangerous advice to people who have cancer. He has also urged his followers to stare directly into the sun every day, saying that we have been tricked into fearing the sun to make us dumber. The leadership induces feelings of shame and/or guilt in order to influence and/or control members. Often this is done through peer pressure and subtle forms of persuasion. This is a textbook and egregious example, especially when it turned out that the user YanZZ didn't actually do anything wrong and the cult members refused to accept it. The group is elitist, claiming a special, exalted status for itself. Its leaders and members, for example, the leader is considered the Messiah, a special being. An avatar of the group and/or leader is on special mission to save humanity. Here's how he described himself to a doubter while he was proselyting another sub. The leader, Chris CGC, is constantly referred to as God. He believes that he has special knowledge of the spirit world and wants to use the knowledge for the expressed goal of world peace. The group is also preoccupied with bringing in new members. Monetary rewards are gifted with participating in the sub. The group is preoccupied with money. He spends thousands of dollars a day gilding members with Reddit money, and he also is increasingly paying members real money and offering to pay for their plane rides to visit him. In total, he has spent over $100,000 recruiting followers with a main focus on recruiting teenagers. And here are a few examples of some of the outrageous things he has said, but I think that thankfully, most of these are not taken completely seriously by his followers. His most devoted followers definitely still believe him though. It seems like Reddit is starting to catch on and get worried, as his account was just suspended for 3 days. for telling people to call me or visit me to experience DMT as anti-cancer treatment. He encourages schizophrenia and believes that it's caused by excess DMT and that hallucinations are completely real. As the poster of this thread starts to update it, he goes into one of the podcast episodes that have now been deleted. Edit 3. I just listened to Chris' most recent podcast episode, and I can finally understand what people see in him as a leader and why his followers seem to love him. I'm almost convinced that he's an amazing but insane human being. Either that makes him less threatening because he's not the type of person to start a dangerous cult, or more threatening because he is the type of person that could convince enough people to pull it off. The first half is just a normal conversation, which establishes trust in him before he transitioned to the crazier second half. We learn how Chris befriends the homeless and lets them come into his house whenever they want to bathe, and he wishes he had enough space to let thousands of them sleep in his backyard. He does have over an acre of land, which would be enough to start a commune/cult on a smaller scale. Then, in the second half, he starts talking about DMT, albeit in a far less insane way than he normally does. He then makes some apocalyptic prophecies that he previously talked about on Reddit. He talks about things such as a recession worse than the Great Depression being imminent and World War III between US, Iran, and Israel being imminent as well. However, he does say that those two things will actually be good for everyone except the rich. Next, he tells us what his ideal society looks like. He wants something beyond communism, where money is made illegal. It's not too big of a stretch to say that he might consider implementing such a society on a smaller scale if he gains enough devoted followers. Lastly, he talks about suicide. At first, he said he thinks the people who commit suicide go to a better place and are better off. This is obviously a very scary idea when you look at how common mass suicide is in cults. He seems to be aware of this as he quickly changes his tune to say that he really thinks that people who commit suicide have to start their life all over again, which would be boring. Overall, there were some Jonestown vibes, but mostly he just seems like an extremely moral, charitable, and crazy person. His followers fall in love with him for his morality and charity, missing out on the crazy side, and that's where I think the danger lies. Alright, now, as I said previously, many of the links are dead. However, going over to his website, we can in fact see many of the claims and the beliefs held by this guy, and they still stand under the discovery section of the website. While it might be insane to think that many people even remotely entertain this guy, he made examples out of a few of his devoted followers and even paid for their college, in some cases up to $15,000. As a result, many people sucked up to him in hopes of financial gain. But at the time, Reddit turned a blind eye as they were getting paid through the nose by this guy. I personally believe, as well as many other people, that most of his so-called followers were just in it for the sake of money. And when there stopped being handouts on a daily basis, almost all of his followers started to turn on him for not providing evidence of his claims. At first, some people were willing to be patient since Chris had never provided any proof towards his claims regarding DMT. He came from a scientific background and would constantly post about his upcoming research being published. However, that obviously never happened. At another point in time, one of Cantelmoism's main followers got a restraining order from Chris, which led to him getting doxxed. This led to death threats for leaving the group, and ultimately this situation was starting to spiral. Later on, death threats would flood into basically anyone critiquing the group. However, many people noticed that in many cases, it was just Chris on an alternate account. In an effort to keep some of his followers on the hook without any financial incentives, Chris became desperate and would make alt accounts pretending to be news outlets, stating that they were working on a story about his research. However, obviously people saw right through this. Up to this point, even the most devoted followers started to not be able to turn a blind eye towards his childish behavior. In many situations, he resorted to name-calling like a 5-year-old, and in other cases, he even told a person with cancer that he was an idiot. As a result, his own subreddit turned against him. It read the following: "This is a place for a very mentally ill man named Chris Cantelmo to post his craziness. Please get this man help and don't support him. He has no money left, no family left, and nothing good in his life." So that leaves us closer to today, where around a month ago, this Reddit community as a whole has been banned. I can only imagine because Reddit wasn't getting paid off nearly as much. While Chris still remains online on his other platforms, he's still trying to recruit members in person, but his digital footprint still remains. Even his own Discord turned against him, and one of his top followers has now taken over. From an outsider like myself, looking at this entire situation, in my opinion, I definitely see how this seems quite premeditated. I can see the angle a lot of people have mentioned regarding this guy being mentally ill as well. However, it seems like from the very beginning, this was calculated towards creating a cult. This guy comes from an educated background. He graduated from Yale. He set up a website. He targeted impressionable people, and he used one little sliver of attention and was vindictive towards anyone who didn't agree with his beliefs. Thankfully, however, the situation has been avoided to a large degree. Something else I should note is that I also believe to a certain extent Chris has been experiencing a degree of psychosis. I don't believe this guy to be mentally stable due to the constant drug use. Here we had a guy with a great livelihood and a good life, and he was well off. Then seemingly out of nowhere in the later years of his life, after being an atheist for 56 years, he becomes ultra spiritual as a result of taking DMT and other drugs in excess. He refers to himself as a god, and all of his teachings point to obvious delusions and psychosis. That being said, I don't think talking shit directly to this guy helps whatsoever. As a result, anyone watching this video, don't go harass this guy. His brain obviously processes information differently, and even though what he attempted to do was terrible, it won't stop him from continually doing what he's doing. This guy needs professional help. Instead, this video stands as something much more effective to the situation than directly talking shit to him. At this point, if anyone comes across this rabbit hole or topic on the internet, they have a reference point to which they can understand how this group came to being and avoid it. With that being said, I thank you for joining me here today as we looked at one of the weirdest stories I've ever seen on Reddit. This is Barely Sociable. Have a great night.